In an attempt to reform its submarines, the U.S. Navy started the Guppy program in 1946. This program ultimately led to the construction of the USS Nautilus in 1954, the world's first nuclear submarine, as a reaction to the need for superior weapons in the Cold War era. The Nautilus revolutionized naval warfare by creating the path for the next generation of submarines, which allowed the Navy to have undetected military strike capability anywhere in the world. The Nautilus opened the door to a whole new class of submarines, and it changed naval tactics. As William Anderson, second captain of the Nautilus, put it, by the time the Nautilus completed her initial sea trial, she had effectively rendered obsolete every other submarine in the world. In 1939, the government gave the sum of $1,500 to nuclear reactor research. The research revealed that nuclear reactors could be used as a viable means of propulsion. World War II caused the Navy to redirect its efforts to the Manhattan Project for construction of atomic bomb. During World War II, submarines totaled less than 2% of the U.S. Navy, but proved their worth by sinking more than half of the Japanese merchant fleet, which was an amazing accomplishment.
World War II submarines did have their limitations, like needing to surface to recharge their batteries every 24 to 48 hours, low submerged speed of 2 to 10 knots, and relatively shallow operating depths compared to modern subs.
After the war in the 1940s, the U.S. Navy looked for ways to reform submarines and started a program that reverse engineered two captured German submarines. The program was called the Greater Underwater Propulsive Power, or Guppy for short. The Guppy program had many stages that worked to improve depth, speed, silencing, and sonar. The program had a total of 6 different stages. Before the Guppy program, the Navy outfitted all fleet submarines with snorkels, which allowed subs to stay below the surface when they recharged their batteries. After the war, Admiral Hyman Rickover pushed to have reactor research continued. Hyman G. Rickover was known as the father of the nuclear navy. A Polish immigrant, he graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1922 and served on 2 ships before returning to the Academy for an education on electrical engineering. In February of 1949, Rickover was assigned to the Division of Reactor Development of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. Hyman suggested that a reactor be used in a submarine because reactors don't require oxygen and don't give off exhaust. Hyman pushed hard and was one of the driving forces of the relatively quick build of the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Nautilus. Construction of the Nautilus began on June 14, 1952, at the Electric Boat Yard in Groton, Connecticut. The half-completed submarine was launched after the traditional bottle of champagne was smashed on the bow by none other than First Lady Mamie Eisenhower. 8 months later, the almost complete submarine was commissioned on September 30, 1954, and got the identification number SSN 571, meaning it was the 571st ship built for the U.S. Navy. The Nautilus was complete and ready to test on January 17, 1955, when Chief Engineer Les Kelly reported, "Reactor critical," meaning that the Nautilus's powerful reactor was running. At 11 o'clock, the Nautilus began to carefully move away from the pier. The first skipper of the Nautilus, Eugene Wilkinson, sent the historic message, "Underway on nuclear power," to a submarine tender called the Fulton. Commander Wilkinson soon had the Nautilus moving at 12 knots, 2 knots faster than the posted speed limit. Nautilus finished her hard sea trials 2.5 years later and broke all previous records. The reactor on the Nautilus allowed it to be the world's first true submarine, as Captain Anderson put it. And as Rear Admiral John S. Thatch jokingly said, "Instead of a surface vessel that can submerge only temporarily, a nuclear submarine is a submersible that only has to surface temporarily, just long enough to re-enlist the crew." This new submarine surprised many, and as Vice Admiral Charles Lockwood said, "Sounds like something out of Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea." The Nautilus cost $55 million to build, was 319 feet long, and with a draft of 21 feet 2 inches. It ran on U-235, an isotope of uranium. It could dive to 700 feet and steam faster than 20 knots, and could submerge for 2 weeks or more, sailing at top speed the whole time. Whereas World War II era subs could only submerge for 12 to 48 hours, and had to carefully monitor their speed. It also had mechanical scrubbers and air conditioners to keep the environment comfortable for the crew. The sub also had creature comforts like a jukebox, ice cream machine, movies in the crew mess, and sun lamps. The Nautilus carried 11 officers and 105 enlisted men. The Nautilus had many technological advances on board used for navigation, such as an upward scanning fathometer, an inertial navigator, gyro compasses, and advanced sonar equipment. She was armed with 6 21-inch torpedo tubes. William R. Anderson took command of the vessel in June 1957. Anderson had great ambitions to take the Nautilus under the North Pole, even though he was met with strong opposition. President Eisenhower, his aide, and Anderson planned the idea of going from ocean to ocean via the North Pole. This route allowed the U.S. access to Russia's backyard. This plan was a reaction to the launch of the Russian satellite Sputnik. The Nautilus made multiple attempts to get to the North Pole. Since what the Nautilus was attempting could bring it into Soviet territory, the identification numbers were painted over, and the mission was kept secret until they were successful. The first attempt was an exploratory mission where they made 3 probes towards the pole and came within 180 miles, when they turned back because a power outage disabled the gyro compass's accuracy and put them 40 miles off course. The second attempt was made in June of 1958, but they had to turn around because of shallow seas and deep ice. The third attempt succeeded, and the Nautilus reached the North Pole on August 3, 1958. For the USA and the U.S. Navy, the North Pole, said Captain Anderson on the loudspeaker as they crossed under the pole. The voyage under the ice allowed the U.S. access to the back 3,000 miles of Russian coast. The voyage also proved that a missile sub could hide beneath the ice and fire a missile at Russia from a hole in the ice. The success of Operation Sunshine helped to prove that the U.S. had superior submarine technology. For the first time in history, new revolutionary nuclear submarines did not feel the restraints of battery power, range, and speed. The nuclear reactor allowed subs to keep up with fast surface craft, avoid them, and attack them. Though the Nautilus never saw combat, she received many awards during combat training, such as an E for battle efficiency and an A for anti-submarine warfare. The Nautilus was decommissioned on March 3, 1980, after a 25-year career and steaming over 500,000 miles. Today, she rests in the Submarine Force Museum. The Nautilus was also awarded the Presidential Unit Citation. She was the first ship to receive it during peacetime. Today, nuclear ballistic missile submarines, called boomers, are a big factor of deterrence against attack, whether it be conventional or nuclear. Modern boomers carry more firepower than all the bombs dropped during World War II, in the form of 24 65-ton missiles. After the success of the Nautilus, major powers in the world hurried to catch up with the US, and in the case of Russia, cut corners, which caused many reactor-related problems. Boomers allow the US to have a launch pad anywhere in the ocean, and that even if the US is devastated, it can still strike back. In an attempt to reform its submarines, the US Navy started the Guppy program in 1946. This program ultimately led to the construction of the USS Nautilus in 1954, the world's first nuclear submarine, as a reaction to the need for superior weapons in the Cold War era. Nautilus revolutionized naval warfare by creating the path for the next generation of submarines, which allows the Navy to have an undetected military strike capability anywhere in the world. And as Admiral Robert B. Carney said, Nautilus is a symbol of man's dreaming, his bright dreams certainly, and if a man is not wise, his nightmares too.